sense, but it does not mean that also those forms of living space can always be called home. Home is also described as physical structure. Home is often related to house, family, haven, self, gender, and journeying. Home is also described as physical structure. Home is territory. Home is locus in space. Home is self and self-identity. Home is social and cultural unit. Many researchers argue that emotional-based relationship with the dwelling place is what determines the very nature and essence of home as distinguished from house. Home is virtual place, a repository for memories and lived spaces. Homeland, the place of origin, can be home too. With regard to place identity as affiliation, scholars have explored how people use places to forge a sense of attachment or home. Such identification with place often involves emotional ties to place, but it may also involve the sense of shared interest and values. In attempting to clarify the relationship between house and home, many researchers, particularly architects and historians, have examined the ways design, spatial organization, and furnishings of domestic dwellings influence and deflect concepts and/or ideologies of home. In other words, household designs, furnishings, and technologies constrain or facilitate cultural and historical modes of relating between the people who share these spaces. Of course, how these ideas were manifested aesthetically varied according to social, cultural, and historical contexts. The physical dwelling or shelter is described as simply one aspect of home. Moreover, it is generally recognized that the relationships between the terms house and home must be established in varying cultural and historical contexts. Home is simultaneously a spatial and social unit of interaction. Mary Douglas says, "Home is located in space, but it is not necessarily a fixed space. It does not need bricks and mortar. It can be a wagon, a caravan, a boat, or a tent. It need not be a large space, but space there must be, for home starts by bringing some space under control. Having shelter is not having a home, nor is having a house, nor is home the same as a household. For home, neither the space nor its accessories have to be fixed, but there has to be something regular about those appearances and reappearances or of its furnishings. There are some regulatives, some culturally created and embedded forms that the home reflects." Two prominent Neolithic archaeologists have introduced the concept of home into the Neolithic archaeology, but in different ways. Trevor Watkins was the first to stress the importance of the symbolic aspect of a house in the pre-pottery Neolithic A site of Kermesder. There he sees a creation of home in redefining the role of a house. Although it was a semi-subterranean dwelling, as ones from the Epipaleolithic were, it had non-constructive stone pillars coated with red clay and white plaster, which he interpreted as a representation of a symbolic aspect of home. Also, he suggested that their inhabitants paid a lot of attention to its cleanliness and space organization and reorganization, and some of the pillars were sometimes relocated. No. Ian Hodder, on the other hand, had used the term home, domus, as a metaphor for the domestication of society as a dramatic opposition to the wild world whose taming domestication was symbolized inside the house. Domus, or symbolic domestication, predates the economic domestication of plants and animals. But can we presume that every Neolithic house was a home? Our knowledge about early Neolithic dwellings in the Central Balkans is still vague. Early Neolithic sites are almost always flat sites with horizontal stratigraphy, where structures rarely overlap each other. It is supposed that they were occupied for a short period of time. Our lack of knowledge about those dwellings is particularly due to the way in which they were excavated, partially to the way in which they were excavated, but also because of their construction. Two types of dwellings were constructed, subterranean and semi-subterranean, and above-ground structures. Subterranean and semi-subterranean are represented at the majority of sites. They're all trapezoid irregular in shape, or they have a shape in the form of a number 8, having two cells dug to different levels. Sometimes post holes are found near their edges, suggesting a wooden above-ground construction. Poorly preserved fragments of daub, irregular in shape, are often found, but they are not indicative enough for a definite determination of a wooden frame type, which enclosed the dwelling. In the interior, benches created in the sides of the walls can be found, but other types of fixed furniture are missing. Hearths with or without constructed floor and substructions, or oven-like constructions can be found. Ovens were often constructed as niches in the wall where fire was started, or they could have been dug into the side wall and connected with the ground surface, creating a chimney-like construction. Only at the site of Lepenski Vir have the freestanding dome ovens been found so far. There are no evidence of standardized organization of the dwelling, with some characteristic assemblages or rules where certain objects were supposed to be held. In the above-ground houses, the situation is similar, and we know even less about them. Inside rectangular, above-ground houses, hearths can sometimes be found, but about the spatial organization, we have no information. Even though the presence of semi-subterranean dwellings suggests mobility, the early Neolithic communities of the Central Balkans were practicing agriculture and oviculture, cattle and pig husbandry. There are no evident symbolic elements inside the dwelling besides sporadically and often fragmentary found figurines, amulets, or altars, but they can be found in other contexts around the site as well. Contrary to the early Neolithic settlements, late Neolithic sites were occupied for a considerably longer period of time. Some of them, like Vinča Belgrade, were inhabited since the beginning to the very end of late Neolithic. At many sites, a superimposition of houses is evident, even when there was available space in the settlement. The houses are almost always rectangular buildings with one or multiple rooms built in a well-endowed technique. Flat-topped or domed ovens were often found with multiple floorings and substructions, either of potsherds or broken stones, are regularly found inside houses. Some ovens were rebuilt more than once, which is evident based on the number of layers of clay applied to its dome, or based on the number of floorings, indicating care and longer period of usage. Certain regularities are observed inside furnishings late Neolithic Vinča culture houses. Inside houses from the site of Vinča, Belgrade, Stubline, Crkvenje, Banica, and Divostin, similar sets of artifacts have been found. Next to an oven, a compartment made of metal and daub, connecting the oven and the partition wall, making a rectangle with the back wall of the house, was found. It's like in this reconstruction, 3D reconstruction here. So, what happened? Oh. So here you see the oven, and here this compartment. Inside the compartment, pitoi containing cereal were detected. Near the oven, a built-in quern was located, indicating the area for storage, cereal grinding, and thermal processing of food. Also, loom weights can often be found next to the ovens, in close vicinity of the ovens. Symbolic elements are also frequent inside Vinča culture houses. At the site of Vinča, Jakovo, Gumulava, and Stubline, bukrania were found next to ovens, and their position suggests that they were placed on a wooden post, or they were positioned either above doors or doors of the house or doors of a room. Also, an interesting context with numerous anthropomorphic figurines with tools models were located next to an oven inside house from 2008 at Stubline. At the site of Belovode, 4 bull figurines, together with concentration of pots and animal remains, were found next to the oven inside one building. Sometimes, ovens could have been decorated, as it is evident at the sites of Vinča and Divostin. Even though clay house models have not been found at Vinča culture settlements, clay oven models, some of them with anthropomorphic representations, are not often, but there are some of them found inside Vinča culture sites. Space inside the houses was sometimes remodeled, which is recorded inside one house at site of Jakovo Kormadi near Belgrade. In the remodeling phase of the house at Jakovo, the place where once an oven was, the house floor was built, suggesting repurposing of the room either for economical or some social reasons. So when does a Neolithic house become a home? Can we call early Neolithic dwellings a home? Many scholars suggest that semi-subterranean type of dwelling implies mobility. Mobility is often connected to hunting and gathering form of economy, but there are examples of mobile communities which practice mixed agro-pastoral economy as well. They could have been by origin sedentary agro-pastoral communities which have decided to change a place of living and change their lifestyle. Sometimes mobility is forced, but in the end it can become a choice, a form of living. Kovan proposes that some originally fully sedentary communities living in permanent above-ground rectangular houses during generations of mobility have forgotten and lost the technical ability to build rectangular permanent houses. Mobile groups practicing that form of mixed economy have to be sedentary for at least one portion of the year, limited by crop cycle. But on the other hand, above-ground rectangular buildings are also present at early Neolithic sites at territory of Central Balkans. Although not enough absolute dates are available for this period, especially for rectangular buildings, stratigraphy and ceramic material imply that at least some of those houses are later than semi-subterranean ones. Maybe there is a shift, a tendency of structural culture communities for more permanent lifestyle, which can further indicate changes in social structure. Unfortunately, there is still no evidence that they have changed their ideology, but the number of documented rectangular early Neolithic houses is yet too small for us to make general assumptions. Anyway, neither semi-subterranean nor above-ground early Neolithic houses at the Central Balkans have yielded evidence of any sort of material remains which can indicate clear emotional or psychological connection with the dwelling. There are no repeated sets of repertoire, no symbolic artifacts that can without any doubt be associated with the dwelling. Contrary, in the late Neolithic Vinča culture, communities are building above-ground, permanent, well-constructed houses, one on top of the other, with repertoire, which repertoire illustrates that some rules, regulatives in furnishing and spatial organization were known throughout the Central Balkans. Nonetheless, houses were taken care of, structures were rebuilt, and spaces were remodeled. Strong symbolics was present in many houses. Bukrani, anthropomorphic and zoomorphic figurines were found especially in correlation with oven, which held symbolic in numerous cultures as the center of a house, a center of daily activities, the mundane and the metaphysical sphere of life. A home can be permanent or mobile, but for making house a home, one needs time. It is not just a matter of whether or not it's a mobile construction, but rather does it have a symbolic meaning for its inhabitants. In the early Neolithic of the Central Balkans, there is not enough evidence for making such a statement. From current point of view, it seems that their houses were more shelters than home. Their identity was not based in relation to house or a place, but it was something else. On the other hand, houses of the late Neolithic Vinča culture tell a different story. They portray permanent homes, cleaned, repaired, remodeled houses with symbolic representations permanently located in one surrounding generation after generation. That gives Vinča culture communities not only a home, but a place identity as well. Thank you.